Sonic and Tales of Terrors Story 1. This is a novel, unfortunately, so a video showing just what's in it wouldn't be interesting to look at. It starts with the heroes standing in front of a flying saucer hovering over a treeless part of a forest. By heroes, I have to assume it means literally every playable Sonic character ever, who really only all show up at the same place if it's a birthday party. So now I have to assume they're all here because one of them was having a birthday party. But then why is Big here? Sonic didn't invite Big to his birthday party. And it wouldn't be a good look for Sonic if one of its friends was nicer than him. Big wonders if the person in the UFO just wants to make friends while Tails is cautious about it. But since he could be right, it's believable that Tails doesn't tell him to stop. Big touches the flying saucer, causing the person inside to threaten him. Amy tells her teammates from Heroes specifically to give it a little flower power, which is such a lame line that's dissonant with the tone it was going for. Since when would it be Amy who'd be the first to attack this kind of thing instead of Sonic? And it's trying to distract you from that plot hole by dangling keys in the form of the Team Rose Team Blast. Amy's attack doesn't even do anything, and the saucer sinks firmly into the earth. Somehow a machine telling the heroes to submit sets their hairs on end despite all of the experience some of them have fighting Eggman. Why does Tails say the top looks like it's vulnerable? It wouldn't. Sonic spin jumps at the saucer, crumbling its dome, and has smug, annoying dialogue that clashes with the tension the scene's going for. He's talking as if he only just now showed up, but that would mean the book lied when it said the heroes at the start. It wouldn't make any sense that Sonic wouldn't be with them right away and would be late. But the narration's like the blue blur came into focus as Sonic, so he was. This is like Sonic X, where the other heroes are wimps so Sonic can look better. The saucer splits open, and the metal body of it bursts to shoot green slime all over Amy's team. At least Tails dodged it. Sonic actually laughs at and taunts them when they have every reason to assume the slime is toxic after where it came from. Since when is it like Eggman to pull a harmless prank on them? This is the most obnoxious Sonic there's ever been in the franchise. I've read all of Sonic the comic. He would never say this there. He would have been suspicious and on edge about the slime. Sure, Sonic is supposed to be an anti-hero because the parts of the world where he wasn't marketed that way saw the Mega Drive bomb. But the anti-hero personality was just about him being impatient and rude to people that don't like him. Tails also doesn't take the slime seriously somehow. I only knew that when he said standard procedure. I thought he was supposed to be smart. This is ridiculously out of character. For all they know, an alien saucer splashed them with the stuff that was telling them to submit. Why would they ever think the slime was harmless? Tails would want to put the slime under a microscope the second he got home and counteract whatever effect it would have. This is so disrespectful, and the only way you wouldn't notice how forced this is would be if you had no respect for these characters. Because it's not even just a few. All of them are being insanely stupid by not freaking out about this. Instead, it cuts ahead to the next day where Sonic's running through town hoping to find some explosions and attacks. Like most people would expect him to spend his time doing anyways. He sees Cream and Vanilla in front of their house, and Cream's hitting a wrench against a warped pile of a mountain of sheet metal. And Cheese doesn't care when sparks hit his eyes. Somehow this doesn't cause Sonic to pick them up and run to Tails to get them examined. Or at least run to Tails to tell him they've been possessed. Instead, Sonic loses all of his brain cells, and I've officially lost respect for the story because this is the second time it's been forced to progress by an idiot ball. Sonic expresses some doubt that a wrench would shape a mountain of metal into a spear. He doesn't make anything with metal himself. How would he know it's a bad idea? It's almost like Tails should have been used for this. Cream takes his advice, which makes it forced that she didn't already know to fold two pieces of metal together and start molding it. Cream says she wants Sonic to join her, and he runs to Amy's house instead of Tails' house, where he finds Amy staring at a map of the world. She sneezed out some green slime, and I have to assume the only reason this happened to her was that she happened to have a cold. He runs away, and somehow the narration says then it hit him, as if it wasn't obvious instantly what this was all about. He decides to go back to the crash site, instead of going back to Tails. He sees Big looking different than usual too, and again there's nothing new with how he acts, compared to Cream and Amy. He finally thinks to go to Tails. He says the medical team checked the entire crash site and it couldn't find organic matter in that, robot. And they concluded that the slime was just insulation. Why is he bothering to say its color as if that matters? He at least thought to run some tests on the meteorite, but not the slime somehow. He assumed the metal could have been bad to touch out of paranoia, so he was careful taking it here. For once, I smiled a little because that was good characterization, that he didn't touch the slime. Sonic sees a whole bunch of people getting infected by Cream. Hope it gets explained why she was making that spear instead of doing this right away. This came out before the Metal Virus arc, by the way. Tails says it'll take a while of running test bursts, and Sonic leaves Tails locked in the lab and never succeeds at saving anyone as he runs around whatever town this is. The book is too lazy to give the town a name because that would have been the bare minimum of good world building. He sees the infected people building stuff with metal. That's always interesting. You'd think that the thing Cream built would have been more than enough to tell the aliens where to go. You'd think the thing they would be building would be where Cream was building. Sonic gets backed up against a wall and has to run just between Amy and Cream. Wait, why didn't he jump over them? Moron. He goes back into the lab and Tails pulls an emergency lever to cover the windows and doors of it with metal doors in case Eggman ever attacked. This is how I'd expect Tails to be, because he's smart. If he had the kind of lab that Zombots could break into, that'd be extremely out of character. Tails says he has an idea and explains that the meteorite has an AI that's only interested in taking over everything it touches. Tails built an amplifier in just a couple of hours attuned to the meteorite's frequency that could speak to the fragment, and everyone would understand if he amplified it. Tails talks like he's been infected too. So I take away the point I gave earlier, he really was stupid enough to get slime on him somehow. Even touching gloves is bad enough. I guess it goes through the gloves. He shatters the glass container and opens the security switch. Sonic takes the amplifier out of desperation, just in case he could fix the problem, when Tails talked like its use would just brainwash everyone. So that's convenient. Because he doesn't know about technology, so he wouldn't really know how to modify it, at least without instructions that anybody could follow. Tails had prepared a memo that was attached to the amplifier telling Sonic exactly what he needed to do just in case. Why is a hive mind of people bothering to speak to each other? They already know their plan, which is to call a meteor to the Earth. Sonic talks to them and lies that he's given up and is going to speed things up. He clearly has a plan because the story already said Tails had a memo telling him what to do. But it's still hard to read that he lets them infect him. He presses the amplifier onto a tower, flips on a switch, his vision erupts in fire, and he wakes up in a hospital bed with his secured friends conveniently already in front of him. Even Big visited him, despite the fact that he didn't care enough about him to invite him to his birthday party, meaning he isn't close friends with him. Definitely an alternate universe from the games. Tails says that the meteorite's power was never supposed to pump out that much information that fast. Why is he saying this now? That would have been explained on the memo we gave him. Sonic was the only one who was hurt, because when the machine overloaded, it caught fire in his hands and melted the tower. I guess Sonic didn't have any rings, because it actually hurt him. The story ends with Sonic whining that the one thing he's bad at is waiting, which is a pretty lame line to end off a story like this. This story by Keel Fegley was a needlessly depressing zombie apocalypse story in the Sonic franchise of all things. And it didn't even have the appeal of being started by the main villain of the series. But at least tried to offer something unique, because the people infected were trying to build a beacon to summon a meteor to get the planet invaded. It feels unique that the zombie idea is about nanobot slime operating on behalf of aliens. But it kept giving the characters idiot balls to force the progression. The heroes would have assumed the slime was something horrible right away and had themselves quarantined. And Tails definitely wouldn't have been stupid enough to get infected himself. And why would anyone want a story like this in Sonic in the first place? The appeal of Sonic is that he gets to save people and enact karma on bad guys. Neither of which happened. And maybe if it wasn't needlessly depressing the whole time, it would have made up for that. Sonic's running around super fast was never necessary to the story. The plot could have easily been written so that the slime was broken out automatically, so none of the characters' abilities were necessary. So you could tell this kind of story in any franchise that has sci-fi elements. And it was non-stop, no fun to be had. Even that could have been acceptable if this was a fully visual medium where you could have fully colored in pretty pictures to look at whose bright colors would have tried to offset the tone. The idea could have been forgiven for how dark it was if it was only used when it was interesting. If as soon as Sonic went to the lab, the story could have had time to when the amplifier was made. And then the plan was carried out. Sonic knew Tails was making a cure, so why did he even bother trying to get people to evacuate the town? The part where he was running around town was a waste of time because that was all that happened in it. So it was just there for shock value, which cheapens the plot point. Because at that point it's just about being dark when it was already dark.